Artificial intelligence is often presented as a technology that can see the future. We are told that algorithms can predict who will commit a crime, who will drop out of school, who will succeed in a job, or even which song will become a hit. In Chapter 3 of VideoEticaSnakeOil, authors Arvind and Sayash directly challenge this belief. The central claim is both simple and unsettling. AI cannot reliably predict the future of human behavior, not because the technology is immature, but because the future itself is fundamentally unpredictable. This chapter moves beyond individual failures of AI systems and asks a deeper question. Why do these systems fail again and again across different domains despite advances in data and machine learning? The authors argue that the limits of predictable AI are structural, not temporary. To make this case, they can draw of historical examples, large-scale experiments and real-world deployments in areas like criminal justice, child development, and social media. The core idea, prediction versus explanation, a key distinction introduces in this chapter is between explaining the past and predicting the future. AI systems are very good at identifying patterns in historical data. For example, they tell us that people who grow up in poverty are statistically more likely to face difficulties later in life. That is the explanation of past correlations. But predictably, AI goes a step further. It claims that given data, it can tell us what will happen to a specific person in the future. The authors stress that this leap is unjustified. Human lives are shaped by chance events, social interactions, institutional challenges, and personal choices. These factors are not stable, measurable variables in a dataset. As a result, even highly sophisticated models run into a hard limit. They cannot reliably forecast individual outcomes. The Fragile Family Challenge. One of the most important cases studies in this chapter is the Fragile Family Challenge. This was a large, well-funded scientific competition designed to test the limits of prediction. Researchers given extremely rich data of thousands of children and families, including economic situations and conditions, family structure, health, education, neighborhood characteristics. The task was to predict the outcomes such as academic success, employment, mental health. Importantly, this was the best case scenario for predictive AI, high quality data, no commercial pressure, top researchers, transparent evaluation. And yet the results were disappointing. Even the best performing models were only slightly better than the baseline predictions. In many cases, they failed almost entirely at predicting individual outcomes. The authors emphasize that this failure was not a fluke. It shows that data does not automatically translate into a better prediction, especially when dealing with a complex human life. Why these failures are inevitable? The chapter identifies several foundation reasons why predictive AI struggles. The first one is human behavior is not stable. AI models assume that patterns observed in the past will continue into the future, but societies change. Policies change, institutions adapt, people react to predictions themselves. This makes social prediction a moving target. The second is that important variables are unobservable. Some of the most decisive factors in a person's future, motivation, reliances, sudden opportunities, are not captured in datasets. Two people with identical profiles on paper might end up with radically different lives. The third is prediction changes behavior. Once predictions are used in decision making, they alter systems that they are trying to predict. For example, a student labeled at risk may be discouraged rather than helped. A defendant labeled high risk might face harsher treatment, increasing future risk. This feedback loop undermines predictive accuracy.
The authors apply this reasoning to criminal justice risk assessment tools who claim to predict reoffending. These tools are often portrayed as objective and scientific. However, the evidence shows that they not only are marginally better than random guessing, most people who are labeled high risk do not tend to reoffend. Also, we have to have in our head the biases that are baked into the data. Critically, even a perfect prediction would not solve a moral problem. Predicting risk does not tell us what we should do with that information. This reinforces a recurring theme in the book. A good prediction is not the same as a good decision. One important nuance in chapter 3 is that prediction sometimes works as the aggregate level. AI can focus general crime trends and estimate unemployment rates and model the spread of diseases, but the authors stress that aggregate success does not justify individual level decision making. Just because a model performs reasonably well on average doesn't mean that it should be used to decide who gets parole, who receives welfare, who is admitted at university. The ethical mistake happens when statistical tendencies are treated as destinies. What makes chapter 3 particularly compelling is that Narayan and Kapoor are not simply criticizing bad implementations of AI. They are questioning a much deeper assumption, the belief that uncertainty is a problem that technology should solve. Predictive AI is often introduced in contexts where institutions are already failing. Schools lack resources, schools are overburdened, the welfare systems are understaffed. In these situations, prediction appears attractive because it promises efficiency and objectivity. Instead of investing time and care in individual cases, institutions rely on algorithms to sort, rank, and prioritize people. However, as the authors argue, this use of AI does not fix those problems, it just frames them as technical issues. Structural inequalities, like social instability and human unpredictability, are treated as noise that the better data can estimate. Chapter 3 says that framing is misleading. A key insight on that prediction becomes a substitute for responsibility. When a system claims objectivity, predict risk and decision markers can shift accountability to the algorithm. Judges, teachers, or administrators may feel justified in saying that the model decided, even though the model is built on past inequalities and uncertain suspicions. The authors also emphasize that uncertainty is not necessarily something to be feared. In fact, uncertainty is often what allows for human change. If people were perfectly predictable, there would be little room for growth, learning, or redemption. Predictive AI, if predictive AI were taken too seriously, risk freezing individuals in statistical categories derived from their past. This is especially troubling in high-stakes contexts like the criminal justice or education. When someone is labeled high risk early on, that label can follow them for years, shaping how institutions treat them and how they see themselves. The prediction does not merely describe a possible future, it pushes to produce it. From this perspective, the problem with predictive AI is not technical but ethical and political. The chapter invites us to ask whether prediction should be the goal in certain domains. Instead of asking who is likely to fail, we might ask what conditions allow people to succeed. A question that shifts attention from individuals to the systems. Ultimately, in chapter 3, the dominant narrative is that smarter algorithms will lead to better societies. Narayan and Kapoor suggest that without institutional reform, transparency and democratic oversight, predictive AI risk reinforcing the very problem it came to solve. Just as a conclusion, chapter 3 makes a strong evidence-based argument that AI cannot reliably predict the future of individual humans. This is not a temporary limitation that a model could solve. This is something inherited. It's a fundamental feature of our society. Narayan and Kapoor challenge us to rethink how and why do we use AI. We don't have to use it as an oracle or a natural decision maker, but as a tool in which we don't constrain our judgment or democratic values. Doing that, the chapter forms a central pillar of the book. The idea that the greatest danger of AI is not that it's too powerful, but that we trust in places that we could not possibly deliver it.